seller disclosure form needs to be completed by the seller prior to getting your property listed on the MLS. And today I'm going to help you go through the seller disclosure form, see what exactly is on there, and how to complete the form. The seller disclosure notice form is provided by the Texas Association of Realtors. Sellers must complete this form and provide it to the buyer on or before the effective date of the contract. The first thing that the seller needs to complete once they receive the seller disclosure notice is to provide the property address in which the disclosure is for. And this goes on the first line where it says concerning the property at. After that is complete, you will then place a check whether right here if the property is occupied or if the property is not occupied. If the property is occupied, you will need to let us know how long the property has been occupied for. If it has never been occupied, then you just place a check right here. It just says that the property has never been occupied. After that has been completed, we move down to section 1 on page 1 of the seller disclosure notice. In this section, we just put down what items are included in the property. For example, cable TV wiring, carbon monoxide detector, ceiling fan, cooktop, dishwasher, and so on. All you would need to do is place a check if the property has one, as in yes. If it does not, you put a check in the no. If you're not sure if it has the particular item, just place a check in the unknown. And there are 3 sections that needs to be completed. Once that is completed, you come down to the page on the same section 1. It's going to ask you little more questions. If the property is included, has a central AC unit, wall window AC units, attic fans, central heat, oven, fireplace, chimney, and so on. You do the same thing. If the property does have that particular item, you place a check mark in the Y. If it does not, you put a check mark in the N for no. And if you are unsure, you just place a check mark in the U. In this area, you would also requires for you to put additional information for each item that you do have at your particular property. For example, for your central air AC, is it gas or electric? For the attic fan, if you have one, just describe it, and so on. After you have completed section 1 of page 1, I will need the seller to initial at the bottom of the page to accept what they have just submitted. Then we go down to page 2 of the seller disclosure. Again, at the top, you'll put the property address in which the seller disclosure is provided for. Below that, it's going to ask where the water supply is provided. If it's a city, well, mud, co-op, unknown, and other. Just put a check mark. Below that, it's going to ask you if your property was built before 1978. If it was, just place a check in the yes, no, then place a check in the no, and if unknown, unknown box. If the property was built before 1978 and you have checked the yes box, you would also need to complete a lead-based hazardous form to go along with the seller disclosure notice. Below that, it's going to tell you what kind of roof do you have on your property and the approximate age in which the roof was first installed. Once that is complete, you will need to go ahead and do section 1. If there are any problems that are not working in the previous section on page 1, you will need to go ahead and place that information here. If you need additional space, just please use an additional sheet of paper. We're now about to go to section 2 of the seller disclosure on page 2. This part of the seller disclosure asks if there are any known defects in the property. For example, the basement, ceiling, the doors, driveways, anything of that nature, the foundation. Then if there is, you put a check mark in the Y. If not, you put a check mark in the N. In section 2, if you have any check marks in the Y category, right below that, we will need an explanation of the problems that had occurred for that particular section. Now we're going to be moving on to section 3 of the seller disclosure. This part of the seller disclosure asks the seller if there are any known problems or conditions that you're aware of. For example, aluminum wiring, asbestos components, diseased trees, fault line, hazardous or toxic waste. You would basically do the same thing. If there are any known issues, you need to put a check mark in the yes. If not, just place a check mark in the no. Now, once section 3 is completed, on page 2, again at the bottom, I will need the initial of the seller or sellers, and then we are going to go to page 3 of the seller disclosure. Again, on the top of the page, I will need the property address. Below that, if there were any known defects or problems in section 3 that you had marked as Y or yes, I will need a description of those items here. Section 4 of the seller disclosure notice asks the seller if there are any known items, equipment, or property that needs to be repaired that has not already been mentioned in the previous sections above. If there has been, you just need to go ahead and check yes and give an explanation below stating what item needs to be repaired. Section 5 of the seller disclosure notice asks the seller simple yes or no questions. The first one, is there any room additions, structural modifications, or any alterations to any rooms that requires permit or no permit on the particular property? The second one is going to be asked if there's a homeowners association on the property. If yes, then the name, management company, phone, and the amount. If it's voluntarily, mandatory, whatever it needs to be with the homeowners association. Below that, if there's any common areas such as pools, tennis courts, walkways. There's going to be just a few questions for you to answer, yes or no. If it's yes, click on the or check the box on the left. If it's no, check the box on the right. If you had answered yes to any of the questions above, we will need to get a brief explanation of what those items were right below it. And then once that is finished, we will then also need to get the initials of the sellers again. And this is going to be page 3 of the seller disclosure notice.